The wind howled over the snowy hills, sharp and cold like blades of ice. Eli pulled his coat tighter and looked up at the sky. Something had fallen, fast, loud, and burning. He had seen the flash from his small cabin, a fireball across the clouds crashing deep into the woods nearby. It wasn't a normal plane crash. The light was too blue, too smooth, too alien. Eli grabbed his thermal pack and rifle, not to shoot, but for protection. He knew the forest well, better than anyone, and the crash had landed near Old Frost Creek, a place animals avoided, a place with silence too deep. Snow crunched under his boots as he moved. His breath turned into fog, the cold biting into his beard. And then he saw it. A ship, small and sleek, half buried in the snow, glowing softly, with broken light, metal twisted, steam rising. He raised his rifle, heart pounding, but didn't speak. Something moved near the wreck, crawling. It wasn't human. A slender figure dragged itself across the snow, glowing skin like moonlight. Thin, armor cracked and sparking. Her body trembled as she tried to stand, but fell again. She hissed something in a strange language, eyes wide with fear. Eli stepped closer, slow and calm. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. But the alien woman pushed herself back, gasping, voice shaking. "Don't come near, human," she cried. "I know what you are, carnivore, meat-eater, destroyer." Eli dropped the rifle in the snow to show peace. His hands were empty now. "You're hurt," he said. "You'll die out here." She coughed and tried to crawl away, but her legs gave out. Her head hit the snow, breathing fast and shallow. Her skin flickered with strange lights like stars under the skin. Eli moved in quickly, picked her up like a feather. She was cold, light, and barely conscious. Her body felt wrong, too warm in some places, too cold in others. Something inside her was breaking. "Let go," she murmured weakly. "Don't eat me." He almost laughed but didn't. "I'm taking you home, not for dinner," he said. "Just hold on." He carried her through the snow, careful and quick. The forest seemed to watch him, silent and still, like the world knew something strange was happening. Back at the cabin, he placed her gently on the cot near the fire. Her armor was steaming now, melting the snow from her skin. He used a knife to cut the cracked parts loose, revealing soft blue skin beneath, smooth and marked with glowing patterns. He cleaned her wounds, wrapped her legs in warm cloth, and placed a breathing mask over her mouth. She was still shivering, but alive for hours. She didn't wake, just whispered in her sleep, strange words and names he couldn't understand. Eli sat by her side, watching, wondering who she was, what she had escaped from, and why she was so afraid of him. Night came, and the wind outside screamed louder. But inside the cabin, it was warm and quiet. Then just before midnight, her eyes opened, glowing like twin stars. She looked around, confused, then locked eyes with him. "You," she whispered, voice hoarse. "You touched me." "I saved you," Eli replied. "You crashed. You were bleeding. I couldn't leave you." She sat up suddenly, then gasped in pain. Her legs shook violently. Her hand reached for her side. But there was no weapon, no armor left, just soft fabric and warm skin. What did you do to me, human?" she asked, voice rising. "I can't even walk straight." Eli stood up slowly, unsure what she meant. "I gave you medicine, that's all," he said. "You were hurt." She tried to swing her legs off the cot, but nearly collapsed. He caught her before she fell, held her gently. "Your body is recovering," he said calmly. "You need rest. Not everything I do is an attack." She stared at him, breathing fast, eyes full of confusion, fear, and something else. She didn't fight him now. She didn't run. Outside, snow fell silently, covering the broken ship and the footprints, hiding the first signs that something bigger had just begun. Inside the cabin, two enemies from two worlds now sat in the same firelight, and one of them had just whispered, "I can't walk straight." Lishara opened her eyes slowly. The fire crackled beside her, warm and soft. Shadows danced on wooden walls. The air smelled strange, wood smoke, dry cloth, and something, cooking. Her body ached, but not like before. The sharp pain was gone, replaced by a heavy tiredness. She looked down, shocked to see her armor gone. Her skin, pale blue with soft glowing lines, was covered in thick human clothes. She sat, up fast, panic rising. Her feet touched the wooden floor, and instantly her legs trembled. She clutched the side of the cot, breathing hard. Her hands glowed for a second, then faded. The human entered with a bowl of steaming soup. His hair was messy, his clothes worn, but his eyes were calm, gentle, even. "You're awake," he said, placing the bowl on the table. "Good." She narrowed her eyes. "What did you do to me?" He raised his hands, showing peace. "Just helped. You crashed, remember?" "I didn't ask for help," she said, trying to stand. Her knees buckled and she fell back onto the cot, face flushing with shame. "You nearly died in the snow," Eli said, his voice steady. "You were freezing, bleeding. Your ship's a wreck. You'd be dead if I hadn't pulled you out." She hated it, but he was right. Her body still felt like it wasn't hers, heavy and strange. Her legs, once strong and trained for battle, now shook like new roots in soft soil. "What did you give me?" she asked, voice tight. "Your medicine. It's changing me." Eli shrugged. "Just human antibiotics and nanogel, not alien tech, just care." She looked away. Her pride burned hotter than the fire beside her. She had trained to resist pain, to survive war. But one human, one act of kindness had broken her wall. "My name is Eli," he said after a pause. "What's yours?" She hesitated, then spoke softly. "Lishara." "That's a strong name," he said. "Fits you." Silence followed, only broken by the pop of burning wood. Snow tapped the window gently, like fingers asking to come in. She studied him now, really studied. His face was rough, but his eyes had seen pain, not cruelty. His hands were scarred, not from hurting others, but from building, repairing, surviving. He wasn't what she expected. He wasn't a monster. Eli sat near the fire, picked up an old book, and started reading, not watching her, not pressing her with questions. She stared at him, confused by his silence, by his calm. On her world, humans were spoken of as brutal, always wanting, always taking. But here he was, quiet, alone, offering warmth to an enemy. She tried to stand again, slowly this time. Her feet touched the floor. She pressed her hand to the wall and took a shaky step. Her legs felt different, not weak, but lighter. Like her bones had shifted, her balance had changed. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. Eli looked up. "Your body's healing," he said. "Sometimes healing feels strange, especially when no one ever let you do it before." Those words hit her like a whisper in the dark. She had never healed before, only fought, only endured. Her people didn't rest, they recharged. They didn't recover, they repaired. She took another step, slower this time, but stronger. She reached the window and pulled back the cloth. Snow covered the world, pure and silent. The shipwreck was no longer visible. The world had buried it like it never existed. She turned and looked at the cabin. So small, so quiet, but safe. A strange peace rested inside her chest. She didn't like it, but she didn't want it to leave either. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Eli looked into the fire. "Because you needed it." "That simple?" she asked, confused. "That simple," he replied. She sat back on the cot, hands on her knees. "Where I'm from, nothing is free," she said. "Even kindness comes with chains." "Then maybe it's time you saw something new," Eli said. "This place isn't much, but it's free. No chains." Lishara stared at the glowing lines on her arm. They pulsed gently, softer than before. Her body was not just healing. It was changing. That scared her more than the crash. She didn't know what was happening inside her, but she knew one thing. This human, Eli, wasn't like the stories. He was different, and maybe Just maybe. So was she now. The days passed slowly like melting snow on a branch. Lishara stayed in the cabin, her body resting, her mind racing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw pieces, bright flashes, colors, voices, not from battlefields or training camps, but from places she didn't remember ever visiting. She sat by the window most days, wrapped in a human blanket, watching the forest breathe. The trees whispered in a language she didn't know, but it calmed her. She hated that it calmed her. Eli didn't ask questions. He just moved around the cabin, fixing shelves, feeding the fire, and cooking meals that smelled strange but warm. He talked sometimes, not about war, not about her species, just stories, little ones, about the woods, about his dog that died years ago, about the stars above the roof. Lishara listened, even when she pretended not to. One morning, she touched the metal spoon in her bowl and froze. A memory shot through her. She was laughing, younger, not a soldier, holding a glowing orb with two others, sharing food that wasn't rationed but cooked soft and sweet. She dropped the spoon, heart pounding. That wasn't one of her memories, not from the life she was told she had. She stared at her hand, glowing faintly under the skin. Was this human medicine changing her mind, too? Eli noticed. "You all right?" he asked, setting down a mug of hot tea. She looked up, confused. "I saw something," she whispered. Something. From before, but not before. He sat across from her, quiet as always. "Want to talk about it?" She shook her head, then nodded. "I was a child, I think, but we don't keep memories like that." "What do you mean?" he asked softly. "My people are trained early," she said, voice flat. "Emotions are distractions. Childhood is just preparation for service. Warmth is weakness." Eli didn't respond right away. He sipped his tea, steam rising like ghost breath, then he said, "Maybe those memories were locked, not lost. Maybe your body's healing is letting them come back." She blinked slowly. That thought hadn't occurred to her. "What if I don't want them?" she asked. "What if remembering makes me weaker?" He leaned forward. "What if it makes you more complete?" The fire cracked, sending little sparks into the chimney. Lishara stared into the flames. Her glowing marks shimmered slightly, softer than before. More alive. Later that evening, she walked around the cabin again. Her legs worked better now, but felt different. They weren't just stronger. They moved like they belonged to someone learning to dance, not someone built for battle. She reached the door and stepped outside for the first time since the crash. The cold bit her cheeks, but she didn't care. The forest stretched in every direction, tall and still, covered in white, untouched by machines. She heard birds, for the first time, really heard them. Then she noticed something else. Her fingers moved to a tree's bark and her mind filled with images. A bird landing, wind moving leaves, a storm long ago. She pulled back her hand, gasping. What was that? Eli had stepped out behind her. "Some say the body remembers more than the mind," he said. "Maybe yours is learning how to feel the world." "That's not normal," she said, voice shaking. "Normal isn't always right," he said, smiling gently. That night she couldn't sleep, not because of pain, but because of wonder. Her head spun with questions. Her memories kept bubbling up. Flashes of joy, fear, songs dancing under colored skies she didn't recognize. She found herself humming in her sleep, a soft tune from nowhere. When morning came, she stood in front of the mirror near the fireplace. Her reflection looked back, glowing softly, eyes clearer, posture straighter. But she wasn't the same soldier who crashed in the snow. She was something else, Eli, she said quietly. "What did you do to me?" He looked up from the tools he was sharpening. "Nothing," he said. "I gave you a place to rest, that's all." "No," she whispered. "It's more than that." He nodded slowly. "Maybe you were always this, just needed a reason to become it." Lishara stared into the mirror again. Her body, once forged for war, now moved with grace. Her thoughts, once locked in commands, now flowed with emotion. She wasn't just healing. She was remembering the version of herself that was never allowed to exist. and she was beginning to like her. The peace didn't last long. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the frozen hills, Eli returned from chopping wood with a strange look in his eyes. He didn't speak, just handed Lishara a cup of hot tea and sat quietly. She noticed the shift right away. He always told her stories, always talked, but tonight he was silent. "What happened?" she asked. He looked at her slowly. "Something's watching us." Her heart skipped. "Your people?" she asked. "No," he said, "not mine." They stepped outside. Snow crunching under their boots, Eli led her behind the cabin to a small tree. Half buried in the snow was a black fist-sized device, smooth, metal, blinking faint red light. Lishara froze. She knew that tech. It was a recon eye, a scout drone used by her species, silent, nearly invisible. It hovered, recorded, tracked, then called for backup. She picked it up carefully, her hands glowing faintly as she disabled it. "They found me," she whispered. "They know I'm alive." Eli's jaw tightened. "Then we prepare." Inside the cabin, the warmth now felt fragile. Lishara moved quickly, checking the supplies, scanning her skin for hidden trackers. Her pulse raced. The memories of home, of cold commanders, forced missions, and endless drills, came back like knives. "They'll come for me," she said. "They'll think I'm infected. Broken, dangerous. You're none of those," Eli said. "You're free." She turned, eyes flashing. "Free people don't get hunted." Eli stood and opened a wooden chest. Inside were small tools, wires, parts of old devices, and something that looked like a rifle but made of scrap metal. "I've had my run-ins with alien tech," he said. "We can set traps, block signals, buy time." She stared at him, surprised. "You've done this before?" "More than once," he said. "Old wars leave old scars. They work together. Through the night, placing signal jammers around the cabin, setting pressure traps near the trees. Lishara taught Eli how to mask heat trails and read the sound of approaching drones. By morning, the cabin was no longer just a shelter. It was a shield, but inside her something was breaking again. Not fear this time, but guilt. "I shouldn't have come here," she said quietly as they sat near the fire. "I brought danger to your doorstep." Eli sipped his coffee. "You also brought light to mine." She looked at him, puzzled. "You glow," he said simply. "When you laugh, when you walk, when you breathe now. This place was dead before you fell into it." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not as a soldier, not as an enemy, but as something beautiful. Suddenly her hand flew to her chest, her skin pulsed brightly, pain flashing through her. Eli rushed to her side. "What is it?" she gasped. "It's the beacon. They implanted it before missions. If I didn't report back, it would activate. We have to get it out," Eli said. "No time," she whispered. "They're already coming." The sky darkened by noon. 3 shadows fell over the snow. Small, fast ships built for capture and silence. Eli looked at Lishara. "Do you want to run or fight?" She stood slowly, her legs strong again, but her eyes even stronger. "I want to choose." And she chose to fight. They waited in the trees, watching as 2 armored figures stepped out of the lead ship. Blades on their backs, visors over their eyes. Their movements were robotic, soulless. Lishara stepped into view, letting them see her. "Target confirmed," one of them said coldly. "Subject L-47. Surrender." She took a breath. "My name is Lishara." They raised their weapons. "You are property of the Dominion. You are malfunctioning." Eli triggered a trap, and the ground beneath them burst, snow and smoke flying upward. Lishara moved like lightning, her new body graceful and fast. She disabled one with a single strike, knocking the helmet clean off. The other lunged at her, but Eli shot a net from his crafted rifle, pinning the soldier to the tree. Lishara stood over them, chest rising, glowing with light and fury. "I am not broken," she said. "I am reborn." They left the intruders tied near the wrecked ship. Lishara placed the beacon into the soldier's armor and sent it flying. As the sky cleared, Eli and Lishara sat on the cabin steps, snow melting around them. "Was that the last of them?" he asked. "No," she said. "But now they'll fear me." She looked at him, voice low. You've changed me, Eli, more than your medicine ever could. And somewhere deep inside, she knew she would never be a weapon again. Snow began to melt around the cabin, not because of the sun, but because of her. Lishara sat on the roof at sunrise, eyes closed, skin glowing in soft pulses. The air around her shimmered slightly, like heat over sand. But this was no fire. It was something coming from within her. Eli stood below, watching silently. He had never seen anything like it, not even during the war. She floated down gently, landing on her bare feet, the snow turning to mist where she stepped. I don't feel cold anymore, she said, eyes still half closed. Or tired. He smiled carefully. That's new. She looked at her hands, her fingers flexing with perfect control. The changes, they're complete now. Her voice wasn't just stronger, it was steadier. Her presence filled the space, not like a soldier's, heavy and sharp, but like a storm ready to move. It's not just physical, she added. My mind feels open. Eli led her back inside. You're not just healing anymore, he said. You're evolving. She sat near the fire, watching it flicker. My kind was made for war, she said softly, but now I feel something else. Eli poured tea into 2 cups, then sat across from her. Maybe you're becoming what you were always meant to be. She stared into her cup, then asked, what do humans become when they stop fighting? He thought for a moment. Lonely, he said with a half smile. She laughed. Real laughter this time. Light and musical. It startled them both. That night, Lishara tested her new strength. Eli had set up old metal bars behind the cabin. She walked toward them barefoot, the snow sizzling under her steps. She lifted one bar, thick and heavy, with only 2 fingers, then twisted it into a spiral without strain. Eli blinked. That used to take 2 men and a machine. She smiled. I could lift more, but that's not the point. Then what is, he asked. She turned slowly, her face calm but serious. The point is, I don't need to. Eli nodded, finally understanding. She wasn't showing off, she was showing control. That night they sat under the stars. The trees whispered softly, and the sky was painted with quiet lights. I don't want to go back, Lishara said suddenly. Not to my people, not to what I was. You don't have to, Eli said gently. You can stay. I don't just mean the place, she whispered. I mean the life. She looked at him, eyes glowing with something deeper than light. Do you regret saving me? He stared into the fire for a long time, then said, No. I regret not knowing you sooner. They sat in silence after that, but it wasn't awkward. It was full, rich, like 2 pieces fitting where they were always meant to be. The next morning, Lishara walked deeper into the forest alone. She listened to the birds, the wind, the earth itself, and then she heard something else. A cry. She followed it, moving, fast but light. Soon she found a wolf caught in a hunter's trap, its leg bleeding. The old Lishara would have walked away, but this version, the one born in snow and firelight, knelt down. She reached out slowly, her hand glowing softly. The wolf snarled, but its fear began to fade. Her touch was gentle. Her light wrapped around its leg like warm silk. The wound closed, the bone straightened. The wolf stood, limped once, then turned and vanished into the trees. Lishara stood still, her chest rising slowly. She could destroy, yes, but she could also heal. She returned to the cabin just as Eli was boiling water. You all right? He asked. She nodded. I saved a life today. He smiled. Yours wasn't. The only one changed. That evening, the wind brought a new sound, a deep hum in the air far away. She looked at the sky, her eyes narrowing. They're coming again. Eli didn't panic. How many? She closed her eyes, feeling the energy through the ground. 3 ships, she said. But this time they're not here to capture. He frowned. What then? She opened her eyes, glowing like suns. To erase. Eli stood, his hand resting on his tool, bench. Then we'll stand. She stepped closer. Not as prey. He met her gaze. Not as fugitives. She reached out, her fingers brushing his. "We stand together," she said, voice like wind over steel, and in that moment, the stars above seemed to burn brighter, as if the universe itself had paused to witness the rise of something new. Not a soldier, not a savior, but something stronger than both. The wind felt heavier that day. It carried more than snow, more than cold. It carried silence. A silence that felt like waiting. Watching, Lishara stood in the doorway of the cabin, eyes closed, listening. Her body didn't just feel the air now, it felt the tension wrapped inside it. "They've entered the atmosphere," she said softly. Eli stepped beside her, holding a wrench in one hand and a pulse emitter in the other. "Time?" he asked. 2 hours, maybe less," she replied. "This isn't a scouting mission, they're here to finish it." He nodded. "Then we make them regret it." She looked at him, her expression calm but fierce. "You don't have to fight this." "I do," he said, "because they're not just coming for you anymore." She felt something tighten in her chest, something warm and painful at the same time. They moved together through the woods, setting traps, hiding tripwires under the snow, activating the jammers that Eli had rebuilt. Lishara walked ahead, her fingers brushing the trees. Each touch left a faint shimmer on the bark. A signal. A message. Eli glanced at her with quiet awe. "You're leaving a trail?" "Not for them," she said. "For the forest." When they returned to the cabin, they didn't rest. They stood in silence, shoulder to shoulder, waiting. And then, the sky broke. 3 ships appeared like ghosts above the trees, sleek and black, their engines silent but deadly. Lishara stepped forward, her glow rising with every breath. She could feel them, the commanders who once controlled her, the cold minds that saw her as property. One ship landed near the clearing. Metal hissed and opened, revealing tall, armored figures, their voices echoed from within helmets. L-47. One barked, "Surrender your body for deconstruction." Eli's grip tightened on his tool. "Charming," he muttered. Lishara raised her voice, clear and strong. "My name is Lishara. I am no one's tool." "You are infected," another replied. "The human has altered your function." "I have changed myself," she said. "He simply gave me space to grow." The lead commander stepped forward, visor gleaming. "Then you are a threat to the order. Both of you will be removed." A low hum filled the air. Weapons charging. Lishara stepped in front of Eli, her hands glowing. "I don't want to kill them," she said softly, "but I will not let them take you." The first blast came fast, a beam of energy fired straight at her chest. She didn't dodge. She caught it. The light exploded around her fingers, splitting into harmless sparks. The soldiers hesitated, confused. Lishara's voice turned sharp. "You taught me to destroy, but now I know how to protect." She raised her hands and the ground beneath the attackers cracked. Roots and snow surged upward. Wrapping around metal legs, Eli triggered the traps, one by one, bursts of EMP pulsing across the field. The enemy tech failed, weapons sputtered, helmets went dark. 2 soldiers rushed forward, blades drawn. Lishara met them head-on. Her movements were swift, not cruel. She disarmed one with a twist of her wrist, flipped the second into the snow, and placed her hand over his chest plate. "Go home," she said, "and tell them what you saw." The commander roared, lifting a massive cannon, aiming it at Eli. Lishara's eyes burned bright. She moved between them in a blink, took the full blast, and stood tall, untouched. The cannon melted in the commander's hands. He fell to his knees, breathing hard. "What are you?" She stepped close, her voice now like wind and thunder together. "I am the one thing you never taught me to be," she said. "Free." One by one, the remaining soldiers backed away. They retrieved their broken weapons, lifted their fallen, and returned to their ships. As the engines hummed and rose, Lishara watched in silence, her skin no longer glowing wildly but softly, like fire under snow. Eli stepped to her side. "You let them live." "They're not worth killing," she said, "and I'm not a weapon anymore." They watched the ships vanish into the sky, swallowed by clouds. Then she turned to him, her voice softer now. You saved me. He smiled. I think you did most of that yourself. She shook her head slowly. No, Eli, you gave me the one thing they never did. What's that? He asked. She reached out, her hand resting over his heart. A reason. Spring came quietly. The snow melted from the rooftops, dripping like soft music. The trees began to wake, their bare arms reaching toward the light. The air smelled different, not sharp and frozen, but gentle, full of earth and something new. Lishara stood barefoot in the garden Eli had started, her feet pressed into damp soil, her glowing fingers carefully lowering a small green sprout into the ground. It wasn't a military base, not a lab, not a war zone. It was a garden. And she was planting life. Eli watched her from the porch, a mug of warm coffee in hand. He smiled every time she touched the dirt, every time she hummed that strange melody under her breath, the one she never remembered learning, but always seemed to know. How does it feel? He asked gently. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing soft gold in the morning sun. Real, she said. It feels real. Later that day, they sat by the stream behind the cabin. The same stream that once froze solid now danced. Over rocks like liquid glass, birds chirped nearby, and the breeze carried the scent of pine. I used to be scared of quiet places, Lishara said, watching the water flow. Why? Eli asked. Because silence meant failure, she replied. It meant I wasn't doing something, wasn't fighting, wasn't producing. And now? He asked. She closed her eyes, letting the wind touch her face. Now it means I'm finally listening. They shared that silence for a while, not empty, but peaceful. The cabin had changed too, no longer just wood and tools. It now had curtains she picked, shelves she built, a second chair near the fire that always stayed warm. She had even added carvings to the walls, simple patterns from her dreams, strange swirls and lines that told stories she hadn't known were inside her. One night, as they sat near the fire, Eli brought out a small wooden box. I found something, he said, handing it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside was a crystal, small, cracked but glowing faint blue. Her breath caught. This was in my ship, she whispered, my memory shard. He nodded. I repaired it as best I could. She touched it gently, and the room around her flickered with light. Images appeared in the air, not war, not orders, but moments. A younger Lishara dancing under glowing trees, a soft laugh, a game, a song sung by a woman with matching eyes. She gasped, her hand over her mouth. That's my mother. Eli placed his hand on hers. You had a life before they trained you, he said, and you'll have one now. Tears slipped down her cheeks, glowing like the lines on her skin. I never thought I'd remember this, she said, voice trembling. I thought they took it all. They didn't, he whispered. It was buried, but you grew roots, and now it's blooming again. The next morning, Lishara stood at the top of the hill behind the cabin, looking out at the valley. Her armor was gone, her weapons were gone, but she had never felt stronger. She spoke quietly, as if the wind could carry her words far beyond the trees. To those who still hunt me, she said, you cannot catch what no longer hides. To those who built me to serve, she added, I have chosen to live. And to the sky above, she whispered, to the stars I once feared, I will return one day, not as a weapon but as myself. When she walked back down the hill, Eli was waiting with 2 cups of tea, one for the warrior, he said, and one for the gardener. She smiled. I think I'm something in between. They clinked the cups together softly. That night, as they lay beside the fire, Eli looked at her with a question in his eyes. What happens next? He asked. Lishara turned to him, her voice calm and full of light. We build, she said. We plant, we grow, we live. He smiled. Together, she nodded. Always. And as the stars blinked overhead, not in warning but in peace, the alien woman who once gasped, What did you do to me, human? now whispered something else entirely. You gave me a future,